Hold on, let me see if you're on phone. Do you? Can hear. I can't hear anything. I can't hear.
It's me. Every time I come in here, I have to always change my the microphone that I use, and I forget every single time. Let me get live one more place, and then we'll start. So the way that this usually goes is that you just start telling your story wherever that starts for you, and I'm gonna like take notes. I'll ask questions as we go, and then at the end, if I have any like other questions that I didn't want to interrupt with, then we'll talk about them. But it's just like me and you having a conversation.
Okay.
1 second. I have one more platform. I want to be live on the Podbean website too. So let me get logged up. We'll go. So for anyone who doesn't know, Zach is a part. Well, he's popped in and out. We met on the TikTok platform, and he's got a pretty good stuff. So I'm excited to hear his whole story. Okay. All right, Zach, we are good to go. So, like I said, wherever it starts for you, if it starts in childhood, wherever you feel like your story starts, this is your story. So,
all right. Well, first of all, my name's Zach. I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. My family, it was a great family. They did absolutely the best they could with all the emotional tools and stuff. You know what I'm saying? You got like, you know how a lot of people like back in the day, it's more of just kind of like suck it up, buttercup, and you got to keep moving. Well,
yes.
you know, I had that, but I also had a very, very strict Southern Baptist home. And so I felt so much pressure through most of my childhood because my mom, she would love to like use because like Jesus almost as like the religion part as almost like a weapon kind of towards me when I wasn't doing exactly what she wanted me to do. But and also I was molested by a family member, and I've gotten bits and pieces of memory on that part. But like I can't, my brain I guess is protecting me from like remembering the whole thing. And I can remember also one of my brother's friends molested me when I was young, and I actually told my mom about that. And all she did was go to the preacher and tell the preacher to, the preacher said, "We'll keep an eye on it." And so that's about where that went. And so I felt a lot of security stripped from me at a young age. Also, I'm only like 60 something days in recovery, so I'm still
It's okay.
Um, but yeah, a lot of innocence was stripped, so I was struggling to find identity. And of course, once I got into in 8th grade, I met a guy named George from Fresno, California, and he introduced me to some good old ICP and the psychopathic records music. And growing up in a Southern Baptist home, that's not anything that I had heard of. The most I did was convince my mom that The Offspring was Christian band, and she bought me the Americana album for Easter in an Easter basket one time. But I learned from a young age to be very sneaky because I just didn't want people finding out. Like if I was doing something wrong, because it's like nobody can make me feel bad about it if they don't know that I'm doing it. And so George introduced me to marijuana for the first time. And so I went over to his house and stayed the night. And his mom gave us some weed, and we smoked and walked and got some Fago at a gas station. And like worshipped a turtle and like weird stuff. It was my first time smoking weed, whatever. But I felt that conviction that I had because I do believe I was like saved at an early age, and that's part of my story and my faith. But I had this conviction inside of like I couldn't openly talk about being bad, and other people could, and I felt really jealous of that, and because I couldn't just do it without feeling bad, and I don't know if it was how I was raised or if it was just conviction at that time, but weed helped minimize that and kind of cover it for a little bit. And so when I got to high school, I was known also as Bible Boy because everyone knew that when they came home to my house, that they were going to go to church if it was Wednesday, or if they stayed over on Saturday night, we were going to church in the morning. So I had this like little cross necklace and stuff, and then we found a buddy of mine who his dad let us drink and smoke at their house. So I pretty much I was over there all the time. And so this leads into another story that completely strips my insecurity. And so this guy I became really, really close to. There was some little red flags. I remember staying over there after drinking and smoking one night, and I slept in his bed, and I kept feeling the hand like touch my butt, and I just kick it away and push it away, and I'm just like, this is freaking weird. Like, is he just sleeping and he moves? Like, what's going on? And so I started sleeping on the couch, and we would get drunk, and then there was one night like little things started picking up, like start getting jealous when I'd hang out with other friends and stuff like that. And then I started noticing this mental abuse that started happening. And then there was one night where he kept, of course, I had my Xanax bars, he had his Xanax bars, and he kept offering his to me. And so, of course, I've done about 8 bars that night and drank a lot because he kept handing me mixed drinks back to back to back. The one thing I remember was going into his dad's room and locking the bed. I woke up the next morning to him running out of that bedroom naked. And I was so lost. I was so confused. I got in the shower that morning and I felt something was wrong. And so I confronted that. And then he started talking about like killing me and killing my family and that my kids are going to bow down at his feet. And that should have moved you up as a kid. And he would get on to my social media platform and he would people, all kinds of stuff, and tear me down in every way. Uh, and finally, he moved away, and that was gone. But there was also just like an emptiness. Uh, and so I was smoking weed at that time, and I got introduced to a lot of psychedelics from that guy Aaron. Psychedelics, like I don't have to go on naming the list of drugs, but it was a lot of different drugs I've never tried in my life. And then I started selling weed, and that opened up other doors to finding other drugs and also getting good deals on them because I was selling large quantities of weed. And so that picked up my addiction to um, Roxy's. And before that, when I had first worked into the restaurant business, we know how that goes. And I never thought someone would hand you drugs, but this guy walked up to me with 3 hydrocodone and was like, "Hey, you want these?" And I was like, "Sure." Took them, had a smile on my face, and everyone was like, "Why are you so happy?" And I'm like, "I'm just glad to be working, man." And for the first time, I felt alive. I felt not insecure. I felt confident about myself, and that was the answer. I found it. This is what I have to take in order to be this person I want to be. Until that started running out, and then I got the harder drugs. And one day I was going down the road to a concert, and I was talking to my buddy about all these drugs that I do, try to do different day. But then I was like, but when I wake up, I feel sick. And then it hit me, and I was like, I'm addicted to drugs. And so I'm gonna skip some stuff that may not be that important and just move a little forward.
It's up to you, but everything's important. You don't have to skip anything, but whatever.
Yeah,
If you feel like you don't need to say it, that's okay. But don't like be embarrassed to say anything or
yeah,
like we're not worried about words. Like this isn't TikTok. I am on TikTok, but I don't care. They flag me all the time. Like you're
yeah,
fine.
yeah. I'm not. I'm pretty much an open book when it comes to the recovery community. Um, because today I can see it as a gift. I got to go through all that stuff, but let me go back some. My grandpa had just passed away, and then it was like a couple days later. Like I didn't know how to really process that, and it was like 2 days later I tried heroin for the first time, and so that was the blanket that numbed everything that I had been feeling for so long. And it was, again, it was another solution. Um, I kept taking my own advice growing up, and I always left myself in a mess. Um, but um, a couple years passed, and as I got into dog training and all this stuff, and I found out my dad had cancer, and so I had to watch him deteriorate in front of me. And then I was so happy to be there and to be sober the day that he died and to be there right next to him and holding his hand as he takes his last breath. A couple weeks later, one of my best friends died of an overdose. Another month later, my mentor commits suicide. And a year later, my best friend's girlfriend, who became my best friend, and we were playing music together, and she was teaching me guitar. We would hang out every week, play music and stuff, and she died a year later. Another best friend after an overdose. Yeah, and that was a very, very dark time in my life, and there was no more heroin on the streets, so it was just fentanyl. And so I was buying about 1.5 grams a day of that until my heart couldn't take it anymore. And at this point, I've already had probably 15 to 16 overdoses. My mom found me twice, and one of the last overdose. Let's see, I can remember there was several memorable overdoses. It was the ones my mom found me on in the bathtub one time and in my bedroom. And after those nights, I could feel my pulse coming in my room at night, and that broke my heart. I just wanted to be better. I've been told my whole life I had leadership skills and that I was going to do something. I was going to be someone and be something big. But that was always about others. That was never about my own family. But I'm trying to think of where I left off. But yeah, I had overdosed so many times. Somehow I never overdosed when I was doing the fentanyl. I would always overdose when I had heroin and there was fentanyl in the mix. But when it was just like, I guess, cut fentanyl, whatever, I was on it for a long time. I spent lots and lots and lots and lots of money, hooked Cash App to a credit card, and you can do some damage. And but yeah, my heart gave out, and that was the time panic attacks were happening like 3 or 4 times a week. It was just hurting. I didn't know what to do. I, you know, but then I got straight for a little while after I went to this program called the Overcomers, which is a 7-month inpatient all male facility, and I signed on to become an intern after that 7 months. And I was there for 6 months, and then transitional living for 3 months. And it taught me a lot. It taught me about integrity, and it taught me, the practices of structure. And that's where I learned how structure could really benefit my life, especially in the gym. And then I started getting in volunteer work. I was volunteering for this group called the Phoenix Sober Active Community, which is called something else now. I'm not sure what, but I started getting into volunteer there. They sent me to Boston. I got CrossFit certified to lead classes for the Phoenix there, and I would do indoor climbing, dodgeball, just fun stuff. And I finally was starting to build a life that would give me esteem. And it wasn't the end of everything. I got into the fire department, and I'm probably skipping over a lot of stuff. I've seen some of the notes I took for myself, and I've missed some stuff, but it's okay. you know,
like on telling all the details, we can always do a part two. Like if you remember stuff, like you said, you're only like 6 months in. So if you want to do a follow up in another couple months or like whatever, we can always do that. You can touch back on stuff like whatever.
yeah,
It's always fine. We can always do this again. I always tell people like you can come back as many times as you want because every time you tell your story, you're going to tell it different. For me, I always tell it differently every time. I'm always remember different stuff at that time. You know what I mean? And so I get 100%.
yeah, but I guess I do. I want to mention this last part because it was like my worst fear came to life. When I was at the fire department, I was there for over 2.5 years, and there was during Hurricane Helen. Um, I was also going on this trip for the Phoenix, and I was going with a couple of people, and and so we went on this trip. And let me give the background of how that week went, or 2 weeks. It was I had to swap shifts, and I was doing 48-hour shifts. I had to do swap shifts so people could so I would have those days off. So I was working people swaps on top of working my shifts. I was whooped, and then I went. I was going to concerts. I had so many concerts lined up that year. Towards the end of the year, I had to like sell several tickets that I was so mad I had to sell because it was bands I've been really wanting to see for a long time. And anyway, we were going there, and right before one of the days of going to do some of the work, because we were sharing Narcan and handing out Narcan, and we were there to help the volunteers who were out of like prison and halfway houses and stuff. We were making sure they're taken care of while they help volunteer and serve. So we were giving them recovery meetings, giving them yoga, giving them all kinds of stuff. And then we got to enjoy the rest of the festival. And it was like a bunch of folky bands like Benjamin Todd and Sierra Farrell and some like really good bands that I like. And but before we left that morning, he said he was like, I got some of my meds on me right here. Can you carry this in your backpack, this little black bag? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so I got it. And then he like turned around and I opened it because I was curious. And it was his Klonopin, his Vyvanse, and his Dilaudid. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me right now. And I got so mad and I threw it in the thing. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm sober. We're at a sober event and you handed me your drugs. And you're like this huge leader in these things. And like, and it's, and again, if people are on that and it's helping them and they're able to provide for their life, cool. Don't hand your drugs to another drug addict. That's just a no-no. That's not something you do, especially if you're on a recovery retreat. I don't know what he was thinking, but for some reason, and this is not a homophobic thing, seeing that I've been attacked by people who've preyed on me, but he was also homosexual, and he was also have made remarks to me, so many remarks that and I'm in a fight or flight mode. And sometimes when I get hit on, by men, I freeze up and I don't know what to do. It's just, I'm not there yet. I'm still processing some of that through, counseling and therapy and stuff. But I went there to start serving. All I could think about was what was in that closet. I had the key. I could just go up there. And so I told myself a lie that I need to go and rest because all I had was anxiety. I just couldn't. I couldn't rest. I couldn't be easy. So I went back, got some of the pills, started taking some of those, and next thing you know, he's selling me his Dilaudid. And Hurricane Helen hit. I'm at work. I'm working 72 hours straight, morning to sundown. We're freaking cutting wood. We're cutting wood out of tree, like out of the roads and all this stuff. And fire happened that week, that shift, and everything. And I was defeated. I woke up one morning and I was like, I don't want to live. This is for sure. I don't want to live. And so I talked to one of the battalion chiefs there, led me to my chief's wife, and she helped me get into this place called Shatterproof, which is a first responder program. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned what trauma really was and what it does to your brain and what it does to you. And from that point forward, I've been working on it. But when I came back, I was sober. And then I got this thought and I got so scared. So I ran to the clinic and I'd never tried methadone before. So I tried methadone for the first time. I got it to 65 and it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me being a first responder. It didn't make me feel okay. Um, and so I started tapering down and I started feeling how bad that I felt. And then I was so scared again. I was like, I just put myself in another situation. So I get low enough to go into Suboxone. And then before, before that time happens, I don't have my subs at work one day and someone sent me some fentanyl and I overdosed in my bunk and my crew found me because I couldn't get up to respond to a call. And I had to wake up, vomit everywhere, being carried to a car. And all of a lot of my shift just staring in the hallway, just looking at me. And I got to go back to Shatterproof and I got to go back to the same department, but it was never the same. My people, they were my brothers and they were people I had to trust to have my back and they had to trust me to have their back, but I just lost their trust. Because we had a bunch of good old boys who never went through a lot of stuff like this in their life. And to them, like, there's nothing to them. I'm not hating on them for never experiencing some of the pain that I felt because they've probably had their own pain. Everyone has their own pain and it's valid. But I'm going to go ahead and from that point forward, it's literally been me kicking and screaming to stay sober and to get on some of these meetings and then get to some other in-person meetings and to meet up with my sponsor. I'm like super into this step work right now. I'm in between job right now. I was at FedEx briefly, but it was not for me. I'm going back to a fire department and I got accepted at one. I just got to go do my physical and stuff. So that's good. But right now, like this 2 weeks or week or two that I have, it's all going to be focusing on me getting back into my spiritual work every single morning because with this job that I had, it's been so hard for me to get up so early. And I wake up around like 6 o'clock because I have every intention of getting the spiritual work done. But I struggle so hard right now getting up in the morning that it doesn't get done. And then I beat myself up. And then as I was reminded tonight by my wife, because again, I was just like so self-critical. And she's like, baby, you are so self-critical and you sabotage yourself so hard. And that's when I actually learned I've grown up under pressure my entire life. And it was a moment for me. So me sharing that with y'all is also a realization that I've came to today. But if you have any questions, if anything else comes up, I'd be happy to share it. But
this is a really amazing story. I know we've got 6 people in the TikTok room, and that like never really happens for podcasts. People are commenting this and you turn your pain into purpose for real, that that you're so strong and all of this stuff. And that's like really there might be like usually 2 people, and it's usually my mods that just sit in the TikTok room and listen to the podcast. I really just put it out there for exposure. My main following is on like the podcast platforms. So like that should make you feel good. Like you have a really good story. I'm really sorry that you went through all of the trauma that you did, but you never like turn that into something like, I know you're going to be a firefighter and stuff, but maybe like, as far as your service work goes, focus on SA victims, man. You can relate. And I know you still have some things to work through, and you've been upfront about that. You're not trying to hide that. Everyone still has issues to work through, in my opinion. You know what I mean? We can never stop growing, never stop learning. So that's really amazing. I really don't have, hold on, wait. I know, let's see, we talked about your parents. The panic, I think it's too, like, it really speaks to you and your character when you, like, your anxiety was getting to you so bad about being an addict and about lying to everybody and about, all of those things. And I really think that, like, that means a lot, and you should be proud that you're not just, I didn't never care. I never cared about hiding it. If people knew, they knew. And if they didn't, fuck them. Like, and for you to like the anxiety of the shame and the guilt was just overcoming you. I really think that means a lot to you. I want to talk to you when you talk to your battalion chief and then, or I'm sorry, no, when they all like found you and when you couldn't respond to the call and then you went back. Like, did they treat you differently? Did you feel differently? Do you feel like it was in your mind, or did they really treat you differently? Maybe both.
Why? And a lot was in my head, but I was treated different. Um, and because I pick up on a lot of body language, I'm very big on that because I don't know, like maybe it was from being a dog trainer. I had to learn how to observe a body to like know when they're going to react, when they're going to do this, when they're going to do that, and that does transfer into people. Like it seriously does, and it's a skill that I'm good at. Just kidding. But I'm not. Maybe I'm not that good. But anyway, there was a lot of cold shoulders. A lot of like I was trying to bring my wife there, and then she may say goodbye to some people, and they're just turn the other head and stuff like that. And like I just when I had to make that amends with the crew that I was with, it was the assistant chief's son that was on my crew, and this other older guy named Joey who's been there, who's close to retirement, and it was so hard because they had so much questions, and it's about addiction, and I can't make it make sense. So I'm just literally owning up to everything that I've done, and anything they have to say, I'm just like, it wasn't personal. Like I promise you, it was not personal. It was survival. Like I was just hurting, and that's what I've been used to going to. But to them, it was just well. When you woke up that morning, you said you didn't feel good and you needed to go back to sleep for a little bit. I was like, yeah, I needed to go back to sleep because I felt sick from doing what I did. And then he's just like, well, yeah, you told us you were going to sleep. You didn't tell us you were going to go back and do that stuff. And I'm like, in what place is this safe enough for me to tell you that? And then so it's just like I could understand that they've never been there, that they don't understand it, and then my chief speaks for the people. So when he says everyone's good, you hurt some people or whatever, but we all love you. We all and he would try to encourage me, but he didn't know anything of what was going on. So I would. It just sucked because if I was just with my crew, I was okay. But when I had to go around other crews that I knew were talking about me, and now I'm people because
Yes.
I was showing them who you were. A couple of people.
Oh yeah, yeah. And when I've learned about the fire services, they gossip like middle school girls, middle school people, kids, whatever. But so I've already been texted and like told my name's getting thrown around all around there. But I know how it goes when someone leaves a certain department. You just get name bashed. And today I've been able to just like accept what I've done and like also accept that I've done my part. I've made the amend, and it's up to them at this point to either hold it or lose it because just as sick as I was, and I'm getting better. So there's other sober people that are just as sick, and but I'm not gonna be sitting here pointing fingers at any.
No, and I can relate. I lost the job one time because I was going to the methadone clinic, and it was my meds, and I was like fucked up at work one day, and this was
I
and
was terrified of that.
and then they called me out in the office, and I told them, I was like, this, it's my medication, blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, oh, well, you never told us you were a heroin addict. Like, in what world do you just say, hi, nice to meet you, I used to be a heroin addict? Like, in what world does that happen?
Yeah.
And I was still really early in recovery too, so I was like, man, I don't know. But they ended up firing me, and I didn't think that was fair, but whatever. So I can
funny. I was so transparent with my lieutenant and my battalion chief. They knew me being on methadone, me being on Suboxone, whatever. They knew about it because I was like, I'm not going to get put in that position. I'm going to be honest with you two, and I expect the right things to happen. But I would honest everything. They would take me to the methadone clinic because it was right around the corner. Like in the morning, they would just be like, "All right, you got to be like." There's been a couple of times I got dropped off after a call in my bunker gear, and having to go inside to get my dose and then leave. And but yeah, I got dropped off, or they would just let me get in my car early in the morning and go down there and get it. But I just thought that was a little bit of a funny story, but
That's cool.
I mean,
So the last thing I want to talk about, and then I'll let you go, is this new. I know you said that like your name's been kind of bashed. So do you have like any kind of like nerves or anxiety going into the new department? Are they close to you? Like, is this people that's going to have heard this story? Are you nervous about being judged? Any of that?
um, I'm nervous because I've had chiefs tell me that they can only do one thing because it's the legal thing regarding the HIPAA, but they've actually done it. And like how, because I even texted my chief, I was like, Chief, I was like, if I go to another department and they call you, are you allowed to bring up what happened to me? And he's like, no, legally, I'm not allowed to bring up. I can just say you've worked here from this time to this time. And I was just like, all right. But chiefs, that people, they do talk. They do talk. Like I have other departments that know about me. And, but when it comes to the BMW, one thing my mom said was one of my cousins who was a firefighter, and he was also one of the firefighters. He actually, his grandma lived around the corner. When his grandma died, he lived in that house. He recognized the address, so he was off duty, and he came to my house during one of the overdoses, and he works at BMW, the fire department somewhere. Maybe I won't even want him to be at his location, but there's a partial worry there. But the guy who's like trying to interview me right now, like me and him are like really cool. Like he really seems to like me, and I think he's not like everyone else. Like he's more down to earth than instead of trying to show me how big his penis is, he's like down to earth, and he's actually nice and cool and doesn't try to prove something like most chiefs will do when you're there. He didn't intimidate me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Take it easy.
So I want to get heavy a little bit. I know you said a lot of things have happened to you by males in your life. Do you have trouble like, and then you're a firefighter, so it's kind of like, cause that's like a male dominated trait kind of. So you're like around guys all the time. Do you have any like anxiety or any kind of, no, doesn't.
No,
That's good.
no, because I've even moved past because the thing was is like even after all that stuff happened to me and before I took the drugs from the guy on the recovery event, like I rode to that event with him. Like I was learning to separate and also stand my boundary because I told him like several times, you're not going to talk about me that way. I'm a person and I'm not a piece of me. I don't care if you're a woman or a guy. Like you're not like, okay, it felt good sometimes before when women would say that. But I've also grown in that area and understand that sex is not the 100% part of the relationship. And honestly, me and my wife probably wouldn't have got through it if we didn't try to wait until we have marriage because in my brain, that stuff clouds it. And we knew that it wouldn't be
That's
that.
so beautiful.
So,
How long did you guys date before you got married?
we've known each other for about 2 years, but we had one of our first dates was I didn't want to back out on her because that was one of my rules was if you back out on me on the first date, not doing it again because I've already seen that pattern so many times and I wasn't wasting my time. And so and I was trying to tell her, I was like, look, I'm not trying to ditch you. I'm not trying to flake on you. My dog needs to go to the emergency vet. And it was my soul dog. He had been through me through all those traumas and stuff. And he ended up having to get put down. And so that was our first date. So emotionally, I wasn't there. We stayed in contact a little bit. And sort of around my last like dark time, I something told me to reach out to her. And I did. And I came over to her house and I told her I told her some things that were happening and
Trauma dumped. Yeah.
I trauma dumped a little bit and she didn't judge me. She just was I felt like a person. Someone had compassion and I felt safe. And so it wasn't but several months later, I knew this is it. She's the one. Like I've never had another woman who make me feel safe. I always felt like a project. Like, like I just like I also had this mindset of the chase was always where I would end up. Like a girl could show me all the attention and I would love the attention. I would eat it up for a little bit. But then it's like I already got it. It's in my pocket. I don't want it anymore. And so you find someone that you feel is above your league, and so you chase after that, and it's that roller coaster that I just seem to love and put myself in this whatever journey called life. And but yeah, we talked with each other. It was so funny because the program, when I went back to that place in Florida, the Shatterproof, the guy that was my roommate, we were just talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I only know like one person from South Carolina," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool," and I didn't think anything of it. But I was telling a story about my wife and how she came to know God, and it's just that's her short story to share, but it's her piece of trauma that one day that she'll be able to share and have. But he was like, "Oh my gosh, is her name Erin McNeil?" And I'm just like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I'm her brother's best friend. The guy that I keep saying is I want to be my sponsor is her brother. I've hung out with her family most of my life. Um, and I was at her brother's wedding. And like, I actually got to see him when we went down there, when we got married in Florida and stuff too. But that was really cool. That was like a God wink for me. Cause it's like, I had a roommate. Whoa, my roommate left, and they were deciding, they're like, because when I got there, I was in a freaking hole. Like, I didn't know how I was going to keep moving. Like, I thought I was going to die. I was hopeless. I was like, this isn't going to work. I keep messing up. But they were going to keep me alone because of some of the mental stuff that I was going through when I was in detox. And they were just, and next thing you know, they were just like, well, we put this guy in like 3 different rooms. We're just going to put him with you. And it just so happened that I get put with the one person that's insanely close to my now wife and her family. And that was like
that's definitely a God wink. Yes.
And then, but there were so many God winks. Like, I did so much different therapies and breath work and EMDR and even some ketamine treatment. Like, look, I know that's a very tricky thing, but like in a medical setting, I've already proved to myself I can't buy ketamine off the street. That's a no-go. But for the
well, it's very different in a medical setting. Like, I believe that if you were being treated by a medical professional and whatever, try what we got. Sometimes people have to try more than one thing to get there, and that's fine.
Yeah. And me and my wife had some similar stories about, in some ways of getting sober, but I could relate with her, and her family is just like us, and like I get to be a part of there too. Like, I don't have to hide for the most part when I'm around there. And now I don't hide around my parents anymore, or my mom. And I'm trying to be there for her right now because she's a step. My other brother and his wife, some issue stuff going on, and babies used as a weapon. So, yeah, it'd be like that sometime.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Zach. I appreciate you being with me and sharing your story. I appreciate you rescheduling. I know I had a little bit of confusion yesterday. Fridays and Saturdays are really crazy for me. So I appreciate you. Like I said, if you ever want to come back and share more of your story at any point, definitely reach out and let me know. I would love that.
I would love to do it.
I gotta jump off here. I've got a meeting at 7, so I'm just right now. Actually, I
just want to say to you, thank you for hosting this, and thank you for your service. I do love when I'm able to make the online meetings. So keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you. Much love.
We got a comment over here real quick. It says, "Stay strong. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for having this page so others can share." So thank you to both of us. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Zach.
Yeah.